This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett, and today we're off for a trip up to the beautiful north of England as we take a look at the weapons of Atomfall.
Oh! So the reload on the Sten is smash the mag button with the fresh mag and hope somehow that comes out and then you shove in the fresh one. I don't think that would work, and the last thing you want to be doing to a Sten is damaging the magazine. The risk is you pop off the floor plate and your rounds end up everywhere.
If you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's video. You can catch the main episodes right here on YouTube, but if you head over to our Patreon, you can find longer, more detailed, extended editions of these videos. Atomfall's director's cut is over an hour long, so if you want an even deeper dive into this game's arsenal, head over to our Patreon. You'll also be able to get access to all of our previous extended episodes, as well as early access to next week's episode, where we revisit hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades to take a look at a very special gun.
Oh, God.
But whether you support us on Patreon or watch right here on YouTube, we appreciate all of your support. And now I will throw it over to Jonathan.
The interference field is bringing down aircraft like clay pigeon.
Let me be clear. Our experts are monitoring the situation, and I would urge everyone...
Windscale, the pride of Britain, nestled in the picturesque Lake District, the state-of-the-art atom plant has transformed this rugged landscape into the envy of its northern neighbours.
A very interesting concept for maybe the most British video game that's ever existed. A real nuclear accident before my time, nearly before my parents' time actually, 1957.
The situation is more complex than was at first understood.
No military expeditions into the area have been lost.
Really happened. It's a real place as well. But I think I'm going to see some wackiness, but maybe the weapons will be faithful to the time period. That would be nice. Oh, we're not starting out strong with this thing. This is very familiar. Single shot, 2.2, bolt action. Is that a BSA?
Yeah, I was trying to do some research on this one, and that's where I landed, a BSA model. In game, it's called the Terrier, because of the less than aggressive bark of the weapon being 2.2.
I say we're not off to a good start. I think we are, actually. So, you know, in universe, you're going to have to work to find some more interesting firearms. So something that is commonly available, kind of utilitarian for shooting rats or rabbits or whatever, does make some sense. There seems to be a lot of recoil coming off this thing. It shouldn't really move much at all. It's my initial whinge, I suppose. Apart from being rusty, but I'm guessing weapons can be in different states in this.
Yeah, they come in 3 different flavours: rusty, stock, and pristine.
But yeah, it's suitable for the location. We do have some of these somewhere. There are some differences in detail, notably with the cocking piece, but I think they've based this on a BSA Model 2 or similar. Definitely has the right stock profile, the right general appearance, and the action is very close, but the cocking piece is different. So maybe there's a model I'm missing. In any case, we don't have one in this facility for me to wave about. But I think it's a really cool place. I'm guessing this is a starting weapon, essentially.
Yeah, this is one of the earliest weapons you get in the game.
Yeah, I definitely approve.
When I was researching the weapon, because it's called the Terrier, the 2.2 Terrier in the game. So I looked up BSA, added the word Terrier, and found that they made a motorcycle engine called the Terrier. So nice little connection to the rest of the BSA company.
Interesting.
Which to me only reinforced that it was a BSA because there's a nod to the wider company.
That's probably true. Yes. This is looking much nicer. I like the wood grain on the undamaged version. I mean, I wouldn't even call this a weapon. This is a sporting rifle. Varmints or target shooting. Things that you might find in the UK in the 50s. Suffice to say, there were quite a few more firearms floating around per head of population than now. Right, Colt 1911. I didn't see any British markings, but I don't know if I would, to be honest. I don't know if you spotted any, like RAF, for example. There was an RAF purchase of 1911s at one point.
Yeah, that's the rabbit hole I went down, because obviously most of the weapons are very British in this game. So I looked up British 1911s and came across the RAF ones. In the pristine version, it says Wesleyan Shaw, Northumbria on the side of the weapon.
Yeah.
But as we'll see...
Wesleyan Shaw.
Wesleyan Shaw.
So, Wesleyan Shaw is clearly a nod to Webley Scott. Instead of Birmingham, it's Northumbria.
But as we'll see when we get to the pristine version, there's that arrowhead mark that you referenced in the Indiana Jones episode, which you said pointed to it being British military surplus. So maybe that's something we can get into as we see the weapon become less and less crusty.
Well, the surplus mark, if you like, is 2 of those arrows facing each other.
So it's just the one in this instance.
Just the one says Board of Ordnance or War Office, depending on the era, ownership, essentially. So it's been procured by the War Office for service. Limited British service. The commandos in the Second World War purchased some in 45 and in 38 Super. Before that, the Royal Flying Corps made a sizable, relatively proportionate to how big they were, purchase. And those, by the time they arrived, the Royal Flying Corps was the RAF, so they were all marked RAF, and they'd be around. So, and to be quite honest, there'll be a number of American 1911s imported as well later. I'm not a fan of the Wick flick in 1957 UK. I'm sorry, not a fan of that.
Especially when it's the rusty version. I imagine all that crust would cause some friction, and the magazine is very very smoothly flicked out of the weapon.
Which, on a period Colt 1911, is easier said than done. You can get a good drop free going on. But, yeah, the magazine release isn't long enough. There's too much friction. I don't think you're doing that with a period 1911, and no one would even think to do it. So people would look at you like you were crazy. Even dropping magazines on the floor is probably, certainly wouldn't be trained. You'd probably do it in this sort of emergency. But right, nice view there. There's an attempt at a broad arrow on the back of the slide, which is, I think, from memory, where some of them do show up on the RAF marked pistols. In fact, let's go get one. Okay, so 2 British military 1911s to show you here. Earliest, and the one you came across, Dave, when you went looking. This is in the Webley 455 Auto cartridge, so that's probably what they're alluding to with this thing. So slightly different, well, functionally completely different chambering. It's marked Colt automatic caliber 455 on the slide. Really nice condition. The broad arrow does not look like that. And on these, it is, hopefully I can show you. If not, maybe we can show an image. I think you can see it there on the trigger guard, just above. Tiny little broad arrow mark above crossed pennants, which is the British military proof mark, or crossed flags, actually, is the official description of those. I always said pennants, but they're flags. And so you can see from the design, this is the First World War pattern, not the A1. So we've got the long trigger, no scallops here, and a flat mainspring back strap here. So it's not an A1. There's also the RAF marked version of that, which just has the RAF stamp. Otherwise, is the same. And then Second World War, so equally as plausible for this, is one of those purchased mainly for the commandos, and that's an A1. Now, the pistol in front of me on the screen is not an A1, it's a mixture. So it has the scallops here to help you reach the trigger of the A1, but it has the trigger of the non-A1, has the back strap of the pre-A1, so it's a little bit of an anomaly there. Militant Morris dancers.
The thing we all
I don't know
fear.
how the Morris dancer. I don't know how the Morris dancing community is going to respond to being a faction of psychos in a video game.
It's either Morris dancing attire or cricket pads. That's the usual.
I'm not wearing cricket pads. The Bren gun. It's me Bren gun. I have one here. Based on the lack of dovetail and the cocking handle, that is a Mark II, as I've picked up here. A lot of these made in English and Canada, like this one. So there's the main difference. Flip up conventional sights rather than the great big drum adjustment on the left-hand side. Deleted the dovetail for the non-existent optical sight. Well, the sight existed, but it was never put on the Bren. The locking out the handle on the barrel to use it as a grip. So we rotate it into position, pull it out, rotate, and it locks. This was done. It was intended for the anti-aircraft role on a mount, like a pole mount. But yeah, hip firing with the Bren, and indeed firing from the shoulder with the Bren, if you were suitably hench, was done. Certainly in the jungles during the Second World War and afterwards. This is 1957. This is when the new generation of small arms are coming in, but it's before any serious quantities of converted 7.62 Brens would be around. So if you're looking at this going, oh, it's Cold War, why is it not the 7.62 NATO Bren with the straight magazine and the muzzle device? Perfectly plausible that they would still be, in fact, much more plausible that they would still be 303. And it's a nice looking one. I like the way it's been done. Nice markings there, correct. In the correct format, Bren Mark II. I think you can just about see that on this one. Reload's good. Now, you would, of course, 90% of the time be using this off the bipod as a light machine gun, in which case you always palm off the magazine, and either you or the assistant Bren number 2 will then rock in a fresh magazine. Yeah, trying to do a left-hand reload. I say I like the reload. I do in mechanical terms. You're not going to be doing it with your support hand. The gun is too heavy. You're going to have to put the weapon down, or crouch down at least, and then you would, by training, use your right hand to reload. Don't use your left. Nothing's stopping you other than strength. So if you've been eating your Spam fritters, then maybe. Long-standing video game trope that machine guns are wielded, as we've often said, like very heavy assault rifles. But you know, the Bren is a beast.
If you're enjoying the episode so far, I reckon you'd really love our hour-long extended edition. You can find that by clicking the link to our Patreon found in the description below. And by becoming a patron, you not only help support the work we do here, but you'll also be able to watch all of our previous extended episodes, and you'll get each and every future episode 1 week early. And since we have a new expert lending their wealth of knowledge to the channel, there's never been a better time to join. Each patron directly supports the work we're doing here at EXP, but whether you join our Patreon or follow along on YouTube, thank you for watching, subscribing, liking the video, all of that good stuff. But now we'll get back to the video.
Oh no, why have you shown me the rusty EM2 first? Boo.
Well, I thought it'd be, you know, get the bad news out of the way first, and
I guess
you see a nicer version very soon.
Now, pause there, because we have got right-hand operation here, which is not only correct per the manuals and the period mindset, but really the only way to do it with the AM2. Ask me how I know. I'll tell you. How I know is, when I first picked one of these up, and I think it was this very example, because it's our best condition of the original automatic rifle EM2, 7mm. The EM2 people think of, rather than all the many variants that came after it. When I first picked it up, I turned it over like an AK, grabbed the cocking handle, pulled back, oh, that's a lot of resistance, and it finally gives way, and it cracks your hand into this carrying handle with immense force, and it really hurts. Really hurts. And I did it more than once, by the way, because I didn't learn my lesson.
In game, it's called the JM2. which I have decided the J stands for Jonathan. I have no source for that, but that's the decision that I'm making. Sorry, Rebellion.
For the avoidance of doubt, this is a different team than the Sniper Elite team, who I have worked with, or we do work with, and they didn't ask me about this. Sad face. But they clearly had some good reference material because this is looking very good. I'll reserve judgment for the pristine version, but I would love it if that was a reference to me. Now, this is very interesting. I said they had good reference for this. The reference was this gun, because that scallop that they've modelled in the cheek piece there, that is damage. That's not there on the other examples. That is where it has been chipped away in extensive trials and things, and has probably been dressed a bit to stop it splintering anymore, and it's left this ovoid scallop of wood missing, and that's been modelled as though it's a deliberate feature. But overall, it's looking pretty good. They've had access to pictures of our gun. Probably a good opportunity for a bit of self-promotion, well, institutional promotion. Developers watching this, we are here to provide this sort of service, but in more depth, for any video games containing firearms. You know, we have a great collection here, as you can see, from what we do with these guys and over on our own channel. So we are here, we're happy to help. We enjoy doing that. So please do come to us if you think we can help with reference material, photos, video, advice, inspiration for weapons to include, all of that kind of thing. Now, the reticle on this thing, I won't be able to show you, but if you look at the manual for this, there's a scan of it on the Forgotten Weapons website. The reticle's not right. So they have the inverted post, yep, that's correct, and it has bars coming in from the side. This doesn't have that. What it has is, it has 4 range stadia, tiny ones below the tip of that pointer, so that you know to hold over slightly more, pushing it out to 900 yards. 900 yards with 280/7mm, more like harassing fire, but this thing is not super accurate. Despite a 24-inch barrel, it's equivalent to 4 minutes of angle accuracy, so no better than a number 4 Enfield. Okay, got a great view of this thing. We can see they've modelled it closely on this example. In fact, that breech cover there is a lighter greyish colour as it is on this example. Not sure it would have been when it was new. I think that would have been a little darker. The good thing about modelling one example, which seems to be what they've done here, is that you don't introduce mistakes, because this thing changed so much over its development that a lot of the EM2s out there, not that there are many, that are virtual, have features of different variants range. Great to see the EM2. Would be a shame to have a 1950s set British game and not have the EM2 in it. That's a very rusty Browning high power, specifically, presumably, the L9A1. The first high powers entered British service in 44 with the Paras, made in Canada. Slightly different configuration to this. And it is, I don't think it's 1962 until the L9A1 is introduced into service. The number 2 pistol is already in service, but they don't fully replace all those Webleys till a bit later. Period L9s. This is actually a trials example of the L9. So the earlier ones had the spur hammer. That was just a change to the build standard later on. It's not an A2 or anything when it goes to the spur. It stays L9A1 all the way from when it's introduced to 2013 when they take them out of service. This is far nicer, by the way, finish-wise. This is like a commercial finish on the Trials gun. And this is the later style with the spur hammer. And it's the classic Suncorite black paint, which is on just about everything from the 50s on. Well, end of the second half of the Second World War onwards, really. This is also a sectioned one, which is always nice. You can see how it works.
There's markings on the high power It says
Yeah.
Barker Precision Company, St. Louis, but made in Oxford, England.
That's strange. Yeah, I mean, I get the... well, for one thing, the UK high powers were all made at FN. They all have Belgian markings. Sorry, the ones that weren't Canadian were all made at in FN Herstal in Liège in Belgium. That's understandable for the context of the game. What's more of a head scratcher is setting the sort of parent company in the United States. Maybe that's a reference to John Browning, who started the design of this, finished by Dieudonné Saive. Please forgive my pronunciation. So a bit of a co-production between those two men. Browning struggling to finish the design on account of having died, but he was working for FN, so none of this matters. But not kind of following the history there, put it that way. Just a very minor point that I've noticed. This is the problem with making games that are so high fidelity in various ways. You introduce details that people like me can then say, that's not the right detail. A depressingly rusty Lee Enfield number 4. So at this point, could well be the Mark 1. Or it might be the number one Mark 1/2 or /3. Very minor differences between the two. The main change is where they move to hanging the trigger from a different place. Nothing that the soldier would ever have noticed, and it doesn't change the function or the external appearance at all, other than the markings. So the one I've chosen by sheer luck here is dated 1956, FTR, factory thorough repair. So it would have been made earlier than that, but it's been redated as essentially a new to you, a refurbished rifle in 1956, the year before this is set. So this is very plausibly from the game, which is quite fun.
For your context as well, this is just called the Lee number 4 in-game.
That's bizarre, because I'm not aware of any trademarks on Enfield pertaining to firearms. The Enfield factory closed in 1988 and was a government institution anyway. So I say that, someone probably has trademarked it for firearms.
Well, I forgot to mention with the Bren in-game, that's just called the Enfield LMG.
Okay, so that's not the reason. That's bizarre. Now, the action on this is a Lee action. 100%. Well, not 100%, I guess, but there were improvements or changes made. But the basic action is the Lee action, so calling it a Lee rifle. Anyway, a little bit weird to not call it an Enfield. It's famously the Enfield rifle. Rifle itself, looks good. We're using the battle sight, so this bit here, not the flip-up micrometer adjustable long-range sight, but you can see it folded down there. Oh, I like the boot. Putting the boot in. Now, nobody in 1950s Britain, and probably not anywhere else, is going to be doing it like this. That's a later technique for snipers primarily, where it's very positive, and you're not in a rush because you're a sniper. The way it was always done, and that's why bolt handle knobs are shaped this way, is finger and thumb, and I'm not very fast at it, but they were able to do it in one single motion, back and up, forward and down, like that. And that's facilitated by the steel ball rotating in your grasp. This palming the bolt thing is another anachronism, unfortunately. Okay, that's interesting. I'm sure I saw the correct use of the handle there, as well as the palm. Maybe in the aim, he's doing the... No, it looks like just when it's empty. So we're getting it correct when it's empty. No, that's interesting. So in the aim, so I was wrong, but also right. In the shoulder, he's doing it correctly. From the hip, he's doing it like this. And I think that actually might make sense, you know. In terms of the ergonomics. That's food for thought there. There's loads of detail in this. All the little dings in the wood look really nice as well. You have a realistic variety of wear and tear, which is great to see. Although it looks like we have the hollowed out bolt handle of the number 5 rifle. Bolt handle on the number 4 is solid. That was something that was done for weight reduction. That's the sort of thing that could happen if you, as we would do for research, whatever, you Google reference images, look at Google Images, the search algorithm has thrown up something that is actually not the number 4 that you're looking for, and you go, oh yeah, that's what the bottom of the bolt handle looks like. Let's put that in the game. Very easy to fall for that. One of the reasons why you might want to come here and look at the real thing.
Let's just calm down, eh? No need for violence. Let's see.
The Webley. Now, of course, we've got to have a Webley in the game. Of course, this is almost certainly a surplus, civilian-held example, unless you get it from soldiers.
Soldiers and outlaws and ne'er-do-wells as well. It's pretty common throughout the game.
And there is a late Mark 6 that I've just grabbed on the basis that if you're going to find one and it's one from like reserve military service, it would be late. So this one's made at Enfield, 1925. So they were making these things, I think, until 26 at least, overlapping with the early number 2 revolvers. Loads of detail there, really closely modelled on the real thing.
If you were to do a partial reload of the cylinder, I'm guessing all the rounds would pop out, not just the unfired ones.
Nope, only the fired ones will pop out.
So that is accurate in the game then?
Yes.
Interesting.
Based primarily on the weight of the rounds, the extractor kind of overrides them. What isn't modelled, and this is from memory, having not done this for a while, but the extractor starts to pop up the rounds and then slips past them because they're too massive for it. But very useful feature, needless to say. Flicking the barrel assembly shut is not recommended, but does work. You are going to wear your revolver out doing that, but hey, that's hardly a concern in a life or death situation. I like the fact that you can see right through the empty chambers. I think this might be the best representation of the Webley that we've seen. Another rusty gun. Rifle 7.62mm L1A1. And it's seen better days. I do like the fact that they have, as well as making the metal plausibly rusty, these look like something from one of those dodgy restoration YouTube channels. They have also made the wood look really sad as well, really dried out and sort of grubby. Clearly some good reference material. That's looking good. Oh, no, that was cool. On the reload there, what it looks like happened. So this is rifle 7.62mm L1A1 serial number 1. Isn't that nice? Very nice. And we know that, well, 2 reasons. One is it has this plaque on the butt. And the other is that it has a serial number of U for United Kingdom, E for Enfield, 57 for the year, same year this game is set, and Alpha 1, serial number 1. See if I can show you. Yes, there we go. What I think has happened there is that and this isn't the best way to reload it, but it seems to be what they're going for, is that they're pushing forward with the trigger finger on the mag catch, which actually is very hard to do. Very hard to do. But what I think they're doing is they're pressing forward on the mag catch so it hangs off the front lug and then knocking it out. Whereas the L1A1, by the time the actual service rifle comes in, and it's probably because of the way this one's designed, you've got charging handle left side, you've got magazine catch enlarged for easy operation left side, you've even got the magazine well asymmetric for a nice easy access on the left side. So this is a right-hander's rifle. The selector, of course, the change lever is also left side. Even the disassembly lever is as well. And a creative reload. And maybe that would make sense on a metric pattern FAL, where there's just a little nubbin of a magazine catch that's just as accessible really from either side, and you push that forward with your index finger. Maybe that's what they're going for on the British SLR. Nope, that's not how you do it. They have also copied the conventional FAL lower receiver or trigger group and put an automatic mark on there. Now, there were some SLRs with the A on the lower, but not in the serial number range depicted here, I don't think. So it should just be S and R. Famously, this was a self-loading only rifle. The switch is correct though. Nice touch is that they've got the circular depression that's worn or pressed into the surface of the wooden grip by the operation of the selector there, which does rotate further when the weapon's open for cleaning, by the way. That's why that's on there. It looks like it goes to auto, but when the rifle is closed, it doesn't. But nitpicks aside, this is still going to be the best representation of an L1A1 that I've seen. Does this thing feel like it hits hard?
Yeah, that's what it's my favourite weapon in the game, because it does feel like it packs more of a punch. And, you know, when it comes to fighting armoured things or big robots, that's when the L1A1 was really, really helpful as well, because it felt like you're actually punching through the metal. But yeah, the L1A1 definitely felt like it packed the most punch while also allowing you to have that semi-automatic fire, which in a game like this, super helpful, because you're often being rushed by mutants or Morris dancers wearing cricket pads.
I'm shooting!
Possible to the controlling authority. Your vigilance can save lives.
It's Stenning time. Now, they haven't put the Mark V Sten in, which is I think a bit of a shame. There were plenty of Mark II still around in 57. In fact, this one has been refurbished with that black paint finish. Oh! So the reload on the Sten is smash the mag button with the fresh mag and hope somehow that comes out, and then you shove in the fresh one. I don't think that would work, and the last thing you want to be doing to a Sten is damaging the magazines, because they are the weak point, or rather, they plus this movable magazine housing on the Mark II and Mark V are the weak point. That and variable quality control due to having to produce an absolute ton of them.
Yeah, when I saw that reload, my first thought was, ooh, Jonathan's going to have thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, of all the bits to damage, that's better than anything above it. But the risk is you pop off the floor plate and your rounds end up everywhere. But otherwise, looks good. Speaking of blowback submachine guns, I guess this is why the Mark V Sten isn't in the game, because we have the Sterling. Now, the aperture, first thing I notice is the sight aperture being absolutely enormous. It's only that small. Or that small. It's never that big. That's hilariously large. By the way, just casually mention that this one belonged to Winston Churchill. Very, very small. You might not be able to read it, but trust me, this is dedicated to Winston Churchill and appeared on his firearms certificate in 1964 when it was when all of his firearms were handed in. This is the only one of his that we have. In fact, this one is in fact a Patchett machine carbine. Marked as such. These things were in use at the end of the Second World War, 1944. There's a report saying that they performed really well, and there are several photos now that people have found of them actually in use. So the Mark II Sten, the Mark V Sten, the Patchett, and the M1 carbine, all in use by paratroopers. They're all in use by various troops, but the Mark V Sten, M1 carbine, and the Patchett were used by British paratroopers. Looking pretty good. The only big issue here is the magazine. The magazine on the Sterling is 34 rounds, which is correctly depicted in terms of how many rounds there are. The magazine is way too short for 34 rounds. Otherwise, fine. You know, the rates of fire so far, I think, have all been correct.
I was trying to work out why it's called the Peerless SMG in game before realizing
Sterling.
That's just a synonym for sterling.
Yeah. That's right. Started out as a telephone company. The Sterling Telephone Company. It's like the British version of Acme. Acme also meant the best of.
Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, like the video, comment below what games or movies you'd like to see on the show, and of course, subscribe. As always, a huge shout out to all of our supporters over on Patreon for helping this project and all of these episodes happen. Links on how you can support the Royal Armouries will be in the description below, as will links to all of our social pages if you want to follow along and keep up to date with everything that's happening here at EXP. But until next time, thank you again for watching, and we will see you very soon.